And there's probably actually, in some sense, a lot more mixed cases. In the last few years, we've seen a lot more attention to both Lewy body dementias and frontal temporal dementias. They both have these kind of upper end prevalences of around 20% or so. Lewy body dementia is when you do get a dementia syndrome that's associated with Parkinson's disease. It's Lewy body changes that you see at autopsy and the pathology studies. There's a certain amount of controversy as to how much of Lewy body dementia that follows clearly diagnosed Parkinson's disease, where you get the motor symptoms first, you get the tremors and so forth first, and then develop the dementia later. Some people, especially Parkinson's advocates and family members, some researchers agree with them, argue that that might actually be iatrogenic, and it's the drugs that you need to take for the Parkinson's disease that may be contributing to that. There is a small percentage of cases where people show the cognitive signs either before they show any motor signs at all or before they show very much in the way of motor signs. But none of you have been here long enough to have known Dave Peterson. Dave Peterson, former director of Davis School, and Dave got Parkinson's disease, where he just had his first signs like a little tremor of his middle finger on one hand, and within a year or two after that, he started showing cognitive signs, very dramatic, which is very unusual that kind of throws that way. President Sample has had Parkinson's disease for, I don't know, about a decade now. Seems to be doing pretty well with it. Dave Peterson got his about the same time, had a much steeper decline. But some people would limit the Lewy body dementia diagnosis to the ones where the dementia shows up first or is the primary symptom. It's one of those discussions that you let neuropathologists like probably doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to people that are probably dealing with the intact human beings for the most part. It's not clear that it has any treatment significance yet. Frontal temporal dementias clinically are characterized by people who actually do pretty well on many mental status exams, and then show really bad judgment, behavioral acting out, and personality changes are kind of primary things that bring them in. And in pathology, it's that tissue loss is very much concentrated in the frontal lobes.
Like a lobotomy that it changes stuff.
Lobotomy would be more like that now. Yeah, but it's more like you're losing, so it's like an extreme loss of executive function. It's one of the things like Kate Wilbur and her crew here, they're looking at financial abuse of older adults. They've found a lot of problems in spotting these kind of frontal temporal dementias. I think the people who are maybe particularly susceptible to that because of the loss of judgment and less likely to have been recognized as having dementia because they're still doing well in the memory and the other kind of cognitive tasks. And sometimes people can be really impaired with this and still get like 30 out of 30 on the close. There's other ways you can do that too. And, so the advocates of both of these say that they're at least number 3 behind vascular dementias, and some of them are getting like really full of themselves and claiming that they're number 2 ahead of vascular dementia. I don't think we have the kind of evidence that we need to know that. But, one of the things that tends to happen is these estimates get made by places that are really interested in a particular syndrome, and so you've got people that are particularly looking for an autopsy and are particularly expert at finding it. And so they get somewhat inflated estimates for selection factors and other reasons. But, they're certainly more prevalent. If you look at really old stuff, you might see the label Pick's disease, and Pick's is a type of frontal temporal dementia. some people would say that frontotemporal dementia is a new name for fixed disease, but others would argue that it's a little broader than that.
You'll have to escape to get out of it.
I'm going to get out and go to normal, right?
I think you just did a commercial for Macintosh.
Yeah, it could be
Pro Mac.
hardware rather than software or hardware. Okay, another Alzheimer's brain, not quite as bad off as one we saw before. Remember the normal brains, we saw all of this tissue would be together. These look more like wrinkles, although in fact they are folds. The folds just get much more open. Some other views. This one probably a little further along. This is just from the top rather than the side. Very similar to what we saw before. Midsection kind of thing. Okay. These are the plaques with a silver stain. So these are the amyloid deposits that are characteristic of Alzheimer's disease, and probably the result of neuron death.
What magnification was that?
No idea. I'm a psychologist. This is the same neuritic plaques, but with just a different stain. These are the tangles. The older plaques with Congo and more magnification of neurofiliary tangles. You know, my BioGero colleagues here tell me, one of the reigning hypotheses now about Alzheimer's and what lab level anyway people are excited about in terms of treatment and maybe vaccine is blocking amyloid buildup. Alzheimer's is increasingly being seen as one of several amyloid buildup sorts of diseases. And so because it's called beta amyloid protein, the people that are keen on amyloid buildup are called Baptists. And then there are some people that are more fans of the neurofiliary tangles as being a critical aspect of the pathology of Alzheimer's disease. And because the protein is also called tau protein, T-A-U, tau protein, they're Taoists. So you have Taoists versus Baptists. A little biogerm humor. Tricia?
What's the difference between senile plaque and the amyloid plaque?
None.
No, it's
Different
synonymous.
names. Yeah. They call it neuritic plaque, senile plaque, all of those are all the same. Another neurofiliary tangle, really close up with this thing. Yeah. Bodies, rather than two different stains. It could also be, at least initially, when they're causing Parkinson's disease, would be more down in the motor cortex areas in the brain, and more. So sometimes you'll also see Lewy body diseases, Parkinson's dementia, and Huntington's disease are sometimes called subcortical dementias because it's lower in the brain than the primary cortex level.